In a country of over 340 million people that covers over 3.7 million square miles of extremely confusing but necessarily detailed ecoregions, what does it mean to be an American gardener? Are the characteristics of an American garden as easy to recognize as those of a British, Italian, or French garden? What are we adding to the conversation around gardening, and where are we owning it? We're talking with Rochelle Greayer, the new editor of the American Horticultural Society's American Gardener magazine, and launching into a brand new seasonal mix of gardening, drinking, notes, links, and laughs today on the Garden Mixer.
Yay! Welcome back, us. I'm Leslie Harris. She's Marianne Wilburn. And we took a well-deserved break, but now we are back and so excited about the season. This is the podcast about thirsty plants and thirsty hostesses. And what are you drinking tonight?
Well, we have something new. I am getting really into this idea of trying a new cocktail each time we do this rather than just grabbing a glass of wine. So in honor of sort of the season of oranges from Florida and herbs still in the garden, there's some sage, and the all-American bourbon, because American Gardener editor is joining us tonight. I have a bourbon. I'm trying to hold it up without it because I haven't sipped from it yet. So isn't that beautiful? I
That
have
is
a
gorgeous.
whiskey. I have a bourbon orange whiskey sage orange thing in a glass.
Quick,
I'll give you the
drink
name
it
later. Let's see.
before the
Let me see.
surface tension fails you.
Oh, there's that bourbon.
We know what happened last time.
I remember where that leaves me.
Well, keep an eye on that orange rind, everybody.
I will. What do you drink? Actually, that's very good. I love the little nuance of sage. It has the simple syrup with sage steeped in it. What are you drinking?
All right. So we very much tried to be on the same page for our wonderful Welcome Back to Us season 2 of the Garden Mixer episode. And I completely failed at the grocery store in my quest for less healthy things. And I did not get an orange. I did not get sage. So I followed the recipe and I used not an orange, but an apple. Not sage, but oregano. Still American and gardeny, and there's certainly bourbon in there. From not Kentucky, but Virginia. Actually, I think it is from Kentucky, but it's called Virginia Gentleman. It's all very American. Cheers, Marianne.
Cheers. Cheers. And cheers to a whole new season of the Garden Mixer. And to you, listener, you know who you are. Thank you so much, listener, for listening. We used to have 8. Now we just have the 1.
We
appreciate you. To all of our listeners, welcome and looking forward to the year ahead. I know most of you, like us, are just starting to itch to be outside and getting going. But don't hit that soil too soon because it's a freeze-thaw nightmare. And you can...
Soil compaction is not our friend.
That's right. Let's move swiftly into Clear Up Corner, shall we?
Yeah, let's talk about how we screwed up last season. In the last episode that we put out right before Christmas, I was talking about a loamy and all the things that I said in it. Marianne wanted to, actually, I think she wanted to catch me. Let's just clear that up. I think she wanted to catch me and having bought a very expensive piece of merchandise and discarded it to, I don't know, the corner of the garage or Goodwill.
Right.
No, I still use that thing all the time. And all the good things that I said are true. I'm so happy not to put my garbage in a landfill. But the stuff that is produced by this machine is not compost. And they don't say it is. They say you can compost with it. And that's where I put it. I put it in my compost pile. It looks kind of like compost, but basically what they've done is taken all the goo. They've dehydrated your garbage when you use this thing. And so it's so much better than garbage. I do not put it in a landfill. It's incredibly concentrated and not big. So I'm still a fan of the loamy, but it's not compost. Okay. And I just wanted to talk about, by the time this airs, you might have a beautiful new group of chickens that you're bringing along. But wouldn't that be great? Or do you already?
No, I do not. No,
Okay.
we're
Well, we'll
we're
just
that
fingers
is a
crossed.
springtime thing, and actually, I think I'll be getting pullets because, boy, that really works out well. I've done the thing so many times, and I gotta tell you, listeners, the little pullets in June, dang, that's the way to go. Okay,
Are they the
sorry.
ones that somebody else has grown up? Like,
Yes, to 20 weeks. So you get them and it's a week and they're laying. And I had completely not done that because I wanted all the different colorful eggs and I was afraid of skittish hens. And I got over the needing the colorful eggs after multiple years of doing that. And then was so surprised that this is just from a local farmer, his hens acted better than my hand-reared hens. So
oh,
I've done them twice in a row now, so we're gonna do them again, and I'm
can't
going
wait.
to be
I cannot
thrilled.
wait for that time of
Yeah,
year. But in the meantime, when it's just such a pain to take that garbage from your kitchen and go down and dig it in so that the dogs won't be interested in it,
yeah,
I just had a suggestion of what I used to do at my old bigger house when I truly composted without a Lomi, is that I took the bins from the kitchen and I put them in the garage so no bears, and we're talking 5-gallon buckets from the Home Depot or something that have lids
yeah,
on them. So you
yeah,
just flop them in there and then you make a stack of those. And then one fine day when you're in the need for a workout, that's when you dig them in. Have you
and to
tried something like that?
And to clear out your stomach contents, holy hell, I would not wanna open up those things after. I mean, I sometimes will leave my compost bucket on the sink a day too long, and it's sort of, "Ooh, God,
Oh, yeah.
okay."
No, it
Oh,
tests the strength of your arms, your core, your stomach, all of it. But it puts off a chore, and I'm into putting off a
okay,
chore. So it's just
not a bad idea, just thinking of all the accidents that could happen, rolling the golf cart out, hits the bucket, slop everywhere, I'm vomiting, Michael's vomiting. It could be bad, but all right,
sounds like a
well,
great idea, Les.
sounds
Thanks.
sounds really good. All right, moving on.
I have one more about a pronunciation thing. I was going along with the Willamette elegans, which was the name of a Chamaecyparis that I was talking about for my damn, I wish I'd planted that. And you said innocently, do you mean Willamette? And of course, Marianne is absolutely right. But because I have already learned things in my long life, like kitchenette and pirouette, I just thought it was Willamette.
Yeah,
So I was today years old when I found out that it's Willamette.
I think it's
Willamette, and that's
Willamette, actually. Is it or
oh, no,
ah? Have
it's
you done it
even worse,
again?
probably.
Now we gotta go back one more time. Some of our PNW listeners or Pacific Northwest listeners need to get us straight on that right
Yeah,
away. Is
we
it
are I am
Willamette? I think it's Willamette. But
Willamette. It's certainly not what I was saying
I mean, these are this clear up corner is like the world's biggest cliffhanger. We left them somewhere in
months
December
ago,
going, "But how do you pronounce Willamette?"
and they care. They
And
all
they
care.
do care,
Cheers.
yeah, and the other one, since we're in the Pacific Northwest and we're mispronouncing things left, right, and center, how about the nursery that I always mispronounce and is yet such a fantastic conifer nursery, and that is Isley, and I always say Azalea, Isley. I mean, I've known about this place since 2013 when I won a gold award from Garden
Oh,
Writers,
she just
and
dropped that in
I
there,
know,
didn't
it
she?
was just really easily, and, I just
Boom,
won that
dropped it.
gold award, and out of nowhere, Isley sent this little tiny, juniper called
Aw.
Limerick, I think, and I think it's Limerick. I should know. It's labeled. If a representative from Isley is listening, it's totally labeled. We will have that in the notes. But this little guy was this big, and it was just such a lovely thing, and it just put them on my radar because I didn't know very much about them. They are wholesale only, folks. So when you're getting those gorgeous conifers, oftentimes you're getting them from there, and a beautiful truck has come out and dropped them off at your nursery. I'm sure down at the Ivy where Leslie is. We have one nearby here in Boyd's called Susanna Farms, and I have a friend down in Central Virginia who comes up with his wife to meet that truck
Oh, wow.
and to buy conifers. Isley is a serious, and they have a display garden, but you have to book to go in there. So it's Isley. Isley, and I'm gonna try and remember that for the rest of my life.
Good
And
luck to you, girl.
yeah,
But here's
okay.
what you got right, and that is when Amanda was talking about her "Damn, I wish I'd planted that," and calendula looks good for her up until Christmas, um, we were thinking, "Okay, well, what is the, botanical name of that?" And Marianne said, "I think it's calendula," and she was right, and then she said, "I think it's Calendula officinalis," and she was double super duper right. We are
Yeah.
so proud of her.
Oh,
Absolutely.
man, score. I've been waiting. I've just been waiting since December. Was I right? Gosh,
Yes, you were right.
yes.
Tell about the contrast in perspective that we had for comments.
Oh, we did. That was fun. So going way back to when Erin Shannon guested with us to talk about the seasonal wrap up of the garden, we talked about many topics. In this episode, we started talking about the transitory nature of gardens and how you have to sort of get your head around that this is creative energy that you are channeling and that it very well may not be there in the future, and that the gardens that are there in the future are the exception, not the rule. So we were just discussing how you sort of think about that and cope with that. So one of our viewers
Followers.
on one of our followers on Instagram, or maybe they just dropped in to troll us. Um, yeah. So they said, "Oh, I've got the wrong glasses on. Can I change? Oh my goodness.
Yes, you
Let's
may.
just get
Don't
the
for
old,
changing.
old lady glasses on there. All right. Okay." So she was irritated, a pardon in mirth, and she said, "Way to crush the souls of enthusiastic gardeners. In the same way we gardeners must be selective about what will thrive, I recommend a more careful selection of companion gardeners. Debbie Downers."
Which is so ironic because you're constantly calling yourself that.
I am, but she included you and Aaron
Okay.
as well. And I just replied and said, "Hey, we're just trying to be honest, girl. And
Yeah.
I think honesty is the best policy. It is what it is. Doesn't mean that we all have to sit around weeping and rending our garments, but
Let's rehearse the crisis. Let's do that.
but there is a contrasting opinion. In fact, there were many. And Leslie,
Many. Here's
since
the
you're so
best one. Here's the
bright,
best one.
yeah.
This is one from Ann Berquist on YouTube. She said, "This video stopped me in my tracks. You put into words what I've been feeling the last number of years. I'm a senior well beyond Leslie's young age." Thank you,
Wow,
Ann
is that
Berquist.
possible?
I don't
Right, sorry.
know. Soon maybe moving from the property I've loved and gardened for the last 45 plus years. I'll keep the joy in small is good, because that's what I had said, because that's what I have done at my next home, and definitely take the sage advice never to drive by this property again after moving on. And I just want to write my reply because maybe I'm a little bit more hard-hearted, but I am in the lucky position of having left two gardens that I loved. And I'm sure I'm not alone. I'm sure people have
Mhm.
left many more. When I left the first one of 23 years, I actually did something. I don't know how I thought of this, but I had a I had a party. Well, I knew I had taken a small front yard and made it into total garden. I knew because my girlfriend was actually moving into this house. It was going to belong to the school where we worked at. She was the headmaster's wife. And I said, you're a gardener. You're not a crazy person. That's going to go back to grass, isn't it?" And she said, "Oh yeah." And I said, "Look, is it okay if I just spread the wealth of all these plants and I have a party and people come and dig what they want, including you?" And I called it Shovels and Chardonnay. People brought their shovels. I served very cheap wine. And we had such a fun afternoon of digging up that garden. And it did go back to turf, but now those plants are all over town. So yes, it's sad. Yes, it's hard. But it can be done, and it can be done in a fun and rewarding way. And contrary to Erin's point of view, and I completely understand Erin's point of view of never wanting to go by her garden if she were to leave it. I spent an hour in my garden, my old garden here in Charlottesville a week ago, and I could not have been more happy. Now, it's being maintained almost to what I used to. But it's still just seeing those big old trees and the paths and even just the house. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just being a Pollyanna again, but this is how I am. Thank God for me, because the other person on this podcast would not be
Well,
so
and just
sanguine.
again, you were called the Debbie Downer as well. It was ladies, all right? So let's be real clear. And a garden club that I belong to down in the DC region, we've done several garden rescues for people who are selling their house, and they know that, and the realtor comes in and says, "Hey, it's all got to go. It's got to be lawn." And to be able to sell it well. And so we've all swooped in and dug, and I haven't done one in several years, but it's actually can be quite fun unless like people, the gardeners would get into almost fisticuffs over these rare plants, which
No, I
has
wanted that
almost
peony.
happened. Yeah,
Oh, go
has
on.
almost happened after a yucca rostrata, I think. But yeah, it's a way of your garden living on. It's not going to be
Yeah.
exactly the same. So I agree, and it's not being a downer to talk about these things, and I truly believe that honesty is the best policy because we are joyful. I mean, I know I joke about it, and I know that I like to give you hell about calling everything fun all the time. I take a lot of joy in what I do, and there's a big, deep, joyful breath every time I go into the garden, and the deer haven't been in there. Uh, so it's but it's important. Younger gardeners need to understand this too. That there are reasons for leaving your garden sometimes, and they're okay. There's new challenges ahead, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I just wanted to remind listeners and watchers that at the end of this podcast, after we go through this wonderful time with Rochelle of American Horticultural Society, we are going to have a section where Rochelle will participate, and it's called "Damn, I Wish I'd Planted That," and 3 plants that can look really good in your garden in February. And depending on your garden in February, you might be going, "Holy cow, something could look good in February!" But of course, there are things. So
Oh
wait for that.
yes, there are
Also,
things.
don't forget that at this stage, I think I'm crossing my fingers that at this stage you can get our in between podcast episode called One More Sip of the Garden Mixer, not only on Substack, but also on YouTube. So I'm not going to talk for too long about that in case I couldn't make that work, but look for, I don't want to encourage
Pressure,
myself. I know,
pressure.
but look for that in the future where you could you could have access just like you can on Substack to that One More Sip of the Garden Mixer, which is our in between short and really kind of fun episode because we talk about one thing. We try, and it's a challenge to talk about one thing on that episode.
It is. We have just regaled all of our One More Sippers over the last few weeks while everybody else was on break. They were getting One More Sips about amaryllis and about,
Foxwoods.
yeah, all sorts of
Um,
stuff. Yeah.
so we did all kinds of great episodes that you could
Yeah.
have access to if you were to look into Substack or fingers crossed, YouTube to help us out and subscribe so that you can get access to that
Help us
extra
help
information.
you.
That's it.
Let's introduce everybody to Rochelle Greayer, who is the new-ish editor at American Gardener magazine. She is also the author of Cultivating Style, which is a great book, actually, Rochelle. I've read it and love it. You're the founder and editor of Pith and Vigor magazine. You're a garden designer. And here's the crazy thing. You are a, a builder of F-18 flight simulators. I mean, I have to keep looking at my notes because I don't actually believe that could be true.
Is that true?
A long time ago.
Probably the
Yeah.
same ones that my son is going to be training on in about a week's time. So
Oh,
I'm
yes,
sort of blown
probably.
away by this information. What you learn on the internet's pretty crazy. You never ever said that to me. I mean, I know we haven't gotten too deep in it, but that's exciting. You're going to have to dish about that.
I'm going to. Where is he stationed?
He is at
it
Vance.
Lemoore?
He's going to be at Vance Air Force. No, he's at Vance, but he's going
Vance.
down to Arizona. Am I allowed to say that? I think I'm allowed to say that.
I
Yeah,
don't
he's
know.
going down to Arizona.
So, to my knowledge, at least when I worked on them, there were no trainers that I worked on in Arizona, but maybe there are now. They were in like California and Florida and mainly California and Florida, basically, but maybe there are some now. We did. I worked on the big domes where they had like a full cockpit inside of like I think they were like 40-foot domes or something. So you had graphics all the way around you and it was a real cockpit. And so the job was really writing software to trick a real cockpit into thinking that it was like a real airplane attached to this cockpit. So you were giving it all of this, faked sort of inputs so that the plane would react as a plane really would, in a real flight situation or a real, dogfighting situation or whatever. We would simulate all kinds of fun things like carrier landings and
Like a
yeah, and
Disneyland ride
anything that they
in a
needed to
way,
do. It was fun.
right?
Yeah.
Oh
That
my
is
god.
so
Isn't that
cool.
crazy? I don't think
What
I told you that,
could
Leslie. So,
could I
all
just
right, so
ask, what
you're
was your training for that?
Oh, well, when I grew up wanting to be an astronaut, and I had this idea when I went to college that I was going to be an aeronautical engineer because I thought that's what astronauts were supposed to be. But then I got there and I realized, like, no, aeronautical engineers, like, they build airplanes, which was not actually that interesting to me, despite the fact that I later did work on flight simulators. But I really wanted to be an astronaut. And so at some point I was taking flying lessons, getting my pilot's license and all that, and was kind of going down this route of becoming a pilot. And anyway, I didn't end up finishing as an aeronautical engineer. I ended up getting my degree in applied physics instead, and environmental science. But I nonetheless had a lot of qualifications that allowed me to go to work for Hughes Aircraft right out of college and work on flight simulators, and then later on launching satellites for a whole variety of foreign countries, which was great because I got to travel a lot and do lots of cool things like that for a
Awesome,
while.
awesome beginning
Yeah.
to gardening. Awesome.
Isn't that
Yes.
awesome? I mean,
Yes.
here's to second career horticulture people, 'cause
Yes.
we're well
Yes.
balanced. Oh, what have you got going on there, Rochelle? Tell us about
Okay,
it.
so I have a story. I don't know where you guys are. Oh, I know where you are, Marianne. But I'm up in Boston, and we're like right in the hot seat of the bomb cyclone that's going through. And so we've got
Oh.
about 3 inches and we're expecting 8 more. And so this is in honor of a cyclone. It's my painkiller tiki jar. But then I went to make a painkiller and I realized I had no rum. So I put an espresso martini in it. So anyway,
Okay.
it's an espresso martini in a painkiller jar.
So you can be like
Cheers.
that. Cheers. Cheers, girls.
Cheers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually that's really it was really cool to find that out because I do think that people who have worked in other fields besides horticulture come to horticulture with a very an openness to lots
Hmm.
of things that they might not have had if they just went straight through school and through a mentor and through now I'm nothing against mentors and all of that and nothing against that, but there is just this another level of a life outside of this space that you can bring other things in too. I probably have just pissed off half of our listeners, but hopefully not. We do that on a regular basis anyway, so
Yeah, this is
but
what we're good at.
yeah, it's what we're good at. But you are now at the end of a full year as the
Hmm.
new editor of American Gardener
Hmm.
magazine, and it was The American Gardener, and it's now American Gardener. And can
It
you
is.
explain to our listeners the change and why that happened?
Yeah. It was really, I wrote about it in the first May issue. And I'm trying to even remember what I said at the moment, but I don't know if that happens to you. You write
Oh,
things and you're like, did I write
never.
that?
Oh, no.
Um,
No, 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 never happened to us.
I don't recall. Anyway, but it was really about kind of creating this idea of something bigger than just a singular, like the American gardener, like a bigger idea of American gardeners in general. It's not a singular sort of voice. It's a community sort of voice. It's about identifying with gardening in America, which I personally fully admit I started my career in England. I was living in England when I changed careers. I went to school under the tutelage of all British people who were wonderful educators in landscape design. I personally think that we have had a little bit of a little brother or a little sister complex for entirely too long when it comes to gardening. And, we're always looking to England, France, Benelux countries and feeling like we we wish we were them kind of thing, or, trying to emulate that, and not to our benefit. And I think we're kind of in this really interesting time where we're finally starting to come into our own. And I think American horticulture is actually the leading voice in a lot of topics. And so I really kind of um, wanted to give American gardeners kind of a thing that they could see themselves in the same way that I think, even though it's not called the British Garden, but like Gardens Illustrated, for example, like to me, growing up as a garden designer and whatnot, that was always my um,
That's a
I wanna be
benchmark,
in that
right?
magazine someday. It's just, it's up
Yeah.
there. But it's really part of that British world, even though it's an international magazine, being something like that, where it was really, not to be aspirational, but to be something that as a professional or as somebody who is serious about gardening, you could really aspire to be part of the community that is represented by that magazine.
I think that's a great answer. But it's difficult to define. I mean, it's just England is England, and sure, you've got your, Cornwall, and then you've got, Northern Scotland, but it's a lot of the same thing, and we are everything. So how does that work with a magazine to try to address all those gardens, all those people, and all those places with all those climates?
Yeah. Well, I'm a mom, and I'm all about taking turns. So
Okay, good, good.
but, um, no, no, I get this question a lot, and I kinda have to call it out a little bit, because I sort of feel like we overly dither about that in America. Yes, we all want to be able to open up a magazine and learn something that's extremely applicable to our own garden. And that's a big challenge, because what I can grow in Boston is not what, my friend can grow in Arizona, probably. And so there are challenges there, but again, I look back to like Gardens Illustrated, and it's like, do I begrudge them, or do I not enjoy a story about a Mediterranean garden when I lived in England?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because I couldn't grow all of those, dry Mediterranean plants? No, as a plant lover and a horticulture lover, I ate it all up, and I think more people are like that than not. Yes, of course, there's a challenge of making sure there's something there for everybody. There's so much information on the internet. I don't know that people are looking for a magazine to teach them how to garden these days. I think they're looking for a magazine to teach them things for sure, but how to garden at your extremely local level, a magazine is probably, no matter how narrowly focused it is location wise, is probably not the best source of information. Typically, there's probably a lot better. So I just I don't see it as the biggest challenge, actually. I s
I think that
I
the
always kinda
whole
have to call people out. I'm like, "Really? Is that what you want from us? Is it really? Are you
Well,
really mad at me because I didn't have something about, your, specific whatever?" I don't know.
I think that for magazines, the job of a magazine almost is to quicken the pulse, to sort of
Mhm.
get you, "Oh, that's interesting. How can I apply that?" And just
Yeah.
and you're doing that admirably in a lot of the uh, articles that you're doing. I know I was reading one on bamboo that was fantastic, and it made me want to explore a little bit more. And that's going to mean
Yeah.
what's
Oh, I'm
working for
glad.
me here versus what might be working for the author somewhere else. And I know that there's coastal and Midwestern prejudice about the East. And I can speak to the West Coast prejudice about the East because I grew up there, and sort of the idea that the East feels like they know everything about everything. They're mini England there, and it's the Boston, the New York, the DC, all of that. And they don't understand our climate. And Sunset Magazine, I mean, what do they have? 24 different zones. They took our USDA zones and made them into like 25 in the West. And it is a very complex amount of ecoregions there.
Yeah.
I think that just coming across as a magazine that is not trying to be one gardening style or one gardening region is superior over another is right there enough. It's embracing all of them and recognizing that.
I mean, to be honest, I feel like at the very core of being American is sort of recognizing that some of us are New Yorkers, some of us are Bostonians,
Right.
some of us are Floridians, some of us are from Denver, we're Texans, we're Californians, and these are
Yep.
culturally vast and varied places. I think that trickles into literally every single thing we do, from where we shop to our politics to our like everything.
Yeah.
What we eat, why do we expect gardening to be any different? I mean, it's part of the American experience to say, "Oh, we're all different." Like, and that's like what's so cool and so great. And kind of coming back to that American gardener thing, I really I really, more than anything, want people to, through a magazine, if as much as possible, or through the AHS in general, to kind of take on that mantle of, "Oh, I'm an American gardener," and feel some real confidence in that and, like, some, like, "No, we're a crew," and and
That's right,
and
posse. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, I got
Yeah.
a posse, and yeah, and it's good.
Well,
Like,
what do we want to say is the look or the feel or the talk or the ideology behind our posse of American gardeners?
certainly, I think it's that we have so many people doing so many different things, partially because of where they are and what they can do, but also because of maybe the history of the land where they are.
We're Americans. We want this American thing. But
Yeah.
what are our unique strengths as a
Oh,
group,
oh,
even though we're
yes.
so disparate?
I mean, one is our differences. One is that we have people who, can be out on the plains, like doing these amazing meadow gardens that are, so interesting. Whereas up here in the Northwest, it's like woodlands and whatever, and tropical and Mediterranean and all these things. So we can have such a broad array of people doing different things. But yeah, we all speak the same languages. We go to the same conferences. There is a lot of cross pollination. There's a lot of encouragement, rightfully so, for planting more native and kind of working with your local ecotypes and all that kind of stuff. But I think that there is also a lot of strength in the fact that we all talk to each other. We're not so narrow that we can't. One of the strengths of England, I think, when I worked there and lived there, they have no shame about like having 50 million plants. Like you can get anything you want there. Like literally, like you can get anything you want. They have a whole book when I worked there of like you just look up
Plant
any plant and it'll
finder.
tell you the nurseries
Yeah.
it's available to, and you just call them up and they send it to you. Like so, and it's everything, things that you would. In fact, when I first arrived here, it was called the Plant Finder. I called up the AHS like my first couple months, and I was like, "How do I get the AHS Plant Finder?" And they're like, what the heck are you talking?
Oh,
But I,
no.
I I was like, how do I find plants? And obviously it's not as easy as it is there, but they're experts because they've done all this like plant exploration through the ages and had this empire sort of mentality and whatnot.
Mhm.
We're strong because we just have so many different opportunities to become really good at different things. We have people who can know a lot about South Florida or the plains or whatever. And I think when we come together at conferences or through magazines or other professional things, that that swapping of information is our strength. We really cover it all. We have the opportunity to be experts in such a wide array. I mean, I think about so many other countries, their whole country is like a zone, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Like
Leslie was saying in England, it's Cornwall and everything else. Is that what you said? I have to like raise my hand and go, Miss Harris,
No, no,
please.
no, 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 no.
But
So I said
they have like
Northern Scotland.
yeah, they have about 4 ecoregions, I think, terrestrial
Yeah.
ecoregions.
yeah.
We have like a level 1, there's about 15, and if you go into level 4, we have about 180. Am I saying that right,
Oof, yeah.
Rochelle? It's a
Something like
lot. It's a
a
lot
lot.
of different types
Yeah.
of garden, and we are when we do go to these conferences, you're really excited to find out, okay, wait a minute, how do you garden on the high step? How do you garden
Yeah.
in the desert? How do you garden and you want to try some of these plants and you want to create these things in your own garden and yet we're all speaking the same language.
I think too, though, and I try to do this in the magazine wherever possible. Um, just to take my example a little bit out of horticulture, like I think, for example, that some of the most interesting advances in horticulture have come from the fact that a lot of places have legalized marijuana. Those marijuana growers are just like going to town as far as like figuring out propagation and all this new technology and watering and all of that sort of stuff. It's starting to trickle into more mainstream horticulture. Similarly, it's like we could look to Arizona as we try to figure out, well, how do we water better or conserve water in other parts of the country that, you know, aren't dealing with the extreme water issues that they are? But, we're getting better and better at kind of learning from the places that have to deal with the things in the most extreme way or the most consistent or strong way. And so, like rain gardens. I mean, we don't have a need for rain gardens up here in New England, really.
No.
But they're not a bad idea, And like in an urban setting, like, gosh, you really could change the flow through like the sewers if you did a few more rain gardens. It's not like we're not necessarily doing it for the same reason they're doing it in Utah, where it's dry as a bone. We're doing it for different reasons, but the
For
technology is kind of the
catchment,
same.
yeah.
And they figured it out really well there, and we can kind of apply that up here. I think that's really interesting.
So when you said your goal is not to teach because it would be impossible to teach people how to garden. They have that they have access to the information from other places, and it's too broad a spectrum probably. But so the goal is then to teach people about gardening. And I like your term, Marianne, quicken the pulse. What do you think, when you think about articles for the next editions, and I know you work way ahead, are you like, okay, this is this trend, but we got to go back to this basic, and we have to think about veg versus ornamental versus shrubs and trees. Blah, blah, blah. How do you
Yeah.
balance that?
Well, one thing is we are trying to be very seasonal, as much as possible. We also every issue try to do. We always have like basically at the moment, given our current page count, we try to have at least one, if not two, plant stories that are really about
A plant?
a plant. Sometimes, like in the upcoming issue, it's ferns for evergreen ferns specifically. There's evergreen ferns that are, Pacific Northwest varieties, East
We
Coast
hate them.
varieties.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Puh,
They're
You
too
hate
spitting.
good.
them.
Puh, puh. Sorry.
You're like my husband. I'm constantly in an argument with him. He's like, kill all the ferns. I'm like, I love the ferns. Very aggressive though. But I do love them. Anyway, but the point is we're looking for these kind of the ability to tell a story like evergreen ferns. Evergreen ferns can cover a lot of things. We can kind of, talk about things from different regions. What's native up here? What's going to do particularly well in this type of area? You can sort of extrapolate that if that suits you, even though maybe you're not in that area. We try to give enough information that um, you can find something for you in every story is maybe not everything, but something. We also do we do a lot of, not a lot, but we do some regular stories that I kind of term as my like garden culture. So talking about sort of the people and the history and trying to build that communal story of like what is American gardening, like who are some of the people in our past, who are the people in our present who are important to know and who are doing important and interesting things, and what are they doing. We do a fair amount of stuff on new things that people are realizing, like all of the mycelial networks and the
Mhm.
research that is going in there, mushrooms and some of that, tree diseases. So it's like new developments, or how we're recovering tree species from, big blights and things like that. Gardens themselves, that's a new one actually.
Oh,
When I came in, the first thing I did was take a survey of our current membership and readers and just kind of asked, like, what are you interested in? What are you not interested in? We had all lists and lists and ranking and whatever. Yeah, one of the big ones that we didn't do, up until my arrival was kind of the classic, like, garden story, like, here's a garden, here's the story of how it became, who it belongs to, why it is how it is, all that kind of stuff. Well, really had not done those for a very long time, and that ranked very high.
Is
Good.
that more for amateur gardeners or for professionally designed gardens? Because I know if you look at and this is a little bit of a beef sometimes with the Gardens Illustrated and those, they're very sumptuous, they're very beautiful,
Mm,
but they have moved over time to a more
mm,
designer-focused, designer-led garden. So and they have a very definite, template,
yeah.
Jack and Joe had just moved out of the city when they found Rochelle and she,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
they
yeah,
came
yeah.
together and so they're not really talking to people who are faced with maybe their
Yeah.
dream 1 acre and want to create something. Those amateur stories of like really good amateur designers are few and far between.
They are, and I would say, I mean, we've done a couple. I feel like when you're a garden designer, you might relate to this. Like I know when I first started as a garden designer, I was working in England, and in England, hiring a garden designer is like much more normal than it is here. Like everybody does it. It's not this super high end sort of thing to do. Whereas here in the States, it's much more of a high end service, for people who have enough money to afford that. And um, I always struggled with that, to be honest, because I always felt like, okay, I'm creating this thing that are they really going to get their hands dirty? And are they really, And it it felt a lot of times very performative. It's typical human nature for people to kind of want what the neighbor has and
Mhm.
all of that kind of stuff. But I think when you can get away from that, whether is as a designer, it's not every client where you're working with somebody who is wanting to do more of an expression of themselves, has their own sense of creativity, maybe needs some help to imagine their vision, not just like what they saw up and down the neighborhood. I always find that kind of client more interesting. So, yeah, I guess for the magazine, where I'm trying to say is we're looking for stories that have a unique hook. So most of
Yeah.
them are, like like the current issue has a story about a woman in Denver who she lives in my old neighborhood, actually, not too far from where I grew up. She turned her lot in the neighborhood into a public park with the help of a bunch of her neighbors, and it's this beautiful garden. She did hire a designer, but he's like this young guy and they worked together and like half the neighborhood helped build it. And so yeah,
So
it worked with the
it's a
designer, but
mesh of
not
those 2.
in that way. We're always looking for something a little bit different. I live in New England. We have New England Home magazine, and it's like every garden in there, every design is like done by a high-end designer who's also advertising in the magazine. Like there's a connection there. And
Right.
that's not what the AHS is about. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we're looking for those like stories, where somebody's done something amazing, but how did they learn that skill or where did that come from? Or yeah. I'm not saying they're not designer gardens. Sometimes they are, but oftentimes they're not.
I think there was more of a rich tradition of the amateur garden maker in the UK. I think that did start to wane in the 80s and the 90s. A beautifully designed garden it just calls to be to be put out in a magazine, but
It
I
does.
agree something that meshes so that people, regular everyday American gardeners, British gardeners can feel like I could do this. I can
Yeah.
take some of these design principles and I can apply them
Yeah.
moving forward. Actually, Leslie and I met because of an article in American Gardener magazine. That's
Oh,
how
really?
it was the column that I was writing in defense of gardening,
Uh-huh.
and I was writing on Plants Without Press, I
Uh-huh.
think. I mean, that was about 4 or 5 years ago. And Leslie called me up to talk to me about it, to just discuss it, which is exactly what I wanted to do was sort of discuss it. And interestingly enough, Rochelle, in the winter I have it here actually. In the winter episode, I have to put my double glasses on. What do you think about this look? Is this
It's a great
good?
look.
I mean, this is
Mhm.
an old lady look that I think I'm gonna really rock and bring into the
Yeah,
future.
I think just own it.
So so you and your in your real victory garden, your last word that you had in
Oh,
at the end of this last year, and I just thought
It's
this
a
was
little hard to take you
perfect.
seriously.
Yeah, no, do I look like I mean, I look like doubly intelligent now as I read
Oh, is
this.
that what the double is? That's
No,
the
I
double
think
part?
so. I think so.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
definitely
All
double
right.
intelligence. Okay.
Okay.
But you said, and I have to read this because it's just really articulated so beautifully. What we need urgently is abundance and variety. And you say that,
mhm,
yes, that native plants are important, but the gardens thick with life are important. That means more natives, more heirlooms, more plants from small growers who carry oddball varieties and rare treasures. It means swapping cuttings with neighbors, trading seeds, and breaking out of a model where every plant comes from the same big box shelf. Yeah. The more diversity we weave in, the less brittle our landscapes become. Rava, that is so well put. And that really is, was sort of the part of the reason that I was talking about this, this homogenization of our plant palette, whether
mm,
you're in that cool Pacific Northwest. And by the way, I don't hate ferns. The Pacific Northwest gardeners, they can just grow so many. I hate them.
I know.
So little though.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Envy.
or envy. It's just envy. Or if you're over here with us, or if you're in Cincinnati or you're in Texas, we don't grow the same things and we shouldn't have the
Mhm,
same palette. And so that
mm.
I absolutely love that. That's getting framed. So
Oh, thank you. Thank
I
you.
think Leslie agrees too. I mean, that was we
Yeah,
talked about
no, I
that for
thought
an
that was
hour.
it was a great article, and, Marianne in that article, displayed a sense of, humor that I thought was that I wanted to tap into also. I should just come clean with you right now, Rochelle. I was a professional gardener for 7 years. I ran a business. Before that, I was a school teacher. At the time when I ran my business, I got every garden magazine, including yours, and then I didn't. So I was a member of the AHS,
Yeah.
and I am not anymore. So I feel
Mm.
terribly guilty. And I would like for you to take this opportunity to scold me if you wish, but moreover, give me a good reason as to why I should re up because I know I should. Marianne, do you want to say
Yeah.
something
Yeah,
first?
I do. Real quick, we were talking pre-show about blah 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 American Garden. We need more people in the AHS, and why isn't the AHS as big as the RHS, and all these things. And then I just suddenly went, "You're a member, right?" Because I've had other really like serious professional gardeners go, "No," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
I
So
was.
we
I
want to.
was.
You were. So we want to bring Leslie and all of those people around Leslie who are listening to this podcast. Why do you need to be a member of AHS?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and what can it? I mean, bottom line, what can it do for you? We're always looking at that, but
Mhm.
also, what are you supporting when you send that
Yeah.
little paltry sum, Leslie Harris,
I know. I know. I'm
to
on it.
River Farm?
It
Okay.
is. Well, just to come clean too, I think I alluded to when I moved here from England, where I started my career, and called up the AHS. I called them actually twice, and both times, I mean, I was on the phone, so I don't know if the person was looking at me like I had five heads, but I think she would have if we were in person. I was one asking for a plant finder, and then two, I think I was
That
asking
didn't
something about
exist.
show gardens,
What,
and thinking that the
When's your next
AHS had
show?
something to do with shows, and they had nothing to do with that either. And I was like, what? Um, and why not? I wanted to know, why can't we have like a Chelsea on Boston Common? I was like, thought that would have been a wonderful idea. And why can't the AHS make that happen? Why aren't you making that happen? Because of kind of a little bit of a miffed superiority complex coming from England or whatever that I had at the time. I was like, oh, I'm not joining that. And I never,
Okay. I feel so much better.
well, but I also want to
For a
say, like,
second.
that, so that was in a moment. 20 years later, though, I still wasn't a member, and to me, that's not, that starts to be less about me and maybe more about something else. The AHS has struggled in a big way, and I don't know that I fully can say why, to reach out to people that aren't members. And that is something we are trying to figure out and fix right now.
That ends today. Sorry.
It ends today. Exactly.
It
Well,
ends
'cause
right
I mean,
now.
I'm constantly like, you're not alone. Like, I've been a professional in the industry for 20 years, and I don't know anybody who was a member of the AHS for a really long time. Like everybody. I'm like, well, were you a member? No. What, like, and why not? And I think there hasn't been this mindset that we can have such a thing as a singular organization that we all belong to, that we can rally around. To me, that's almost a luxury, coming from a place like England where we had the RHS, which, by the way, I'm still an RHS member for
Yeah,
20
me
years. I'm
too.
constantly
Yeah.
analyzing, like, well,
Yeah.
why have I
Why?
been so loyal to the RHS, but yet I
Yeah.
wasn't an AHS member? And what is it the AHS needs to do to kind of, match that? So a big part of it is outreach. A big part of it is really being part of the community, inviting more of the community in, understanding what it means to invite the community in. I think that's happening in earnest. The AHS, um, just to kind of give a brief history, nearly ceased to exist about 4 years ago. There was a big rift, and it apparently was big news in the Washington, D.C. area. Most of us aren't there, because there was River Farm, and there was kind of a split in the board. Some people wanted to sell the River Farm and kind of largely disband, I guess, the AHS, and others wanted to save it. Interestingly, a lot of people didn't know about any of this because David, my predecessor, and Mary, who still works with me, um, through all of this sort of drama, which I've heard many versions of the story, they just put their heads down and kept publishing, and which is kind of amazing. And so this magazine that most people know the AHS by, outside of the DC area, just kept coming. And they didn't realize that there was all this turmoil. But the ultimate result of that turmoil is that the group that wanted to save the AHS and River Farm prevailed after, kind of a long drawn out sort of thing. But they had to rebuild from scratch. Basically, half the board left. They had almost no staff, had to hire interim CEO who then became our current CEO. And literally, I think we have 22 people on staff. And the only person who's been there longer than 3.5 years or 4 years is Mary, who was there through the whole thing. So it really is, if you thought you knew the AHS before, it certainly is an entirely new organization. A little bit of, in my mind, I constantly keep saying it's like a phoenix kind of rising from the ashes. It's a 100-year-old organization, but it really did rebirth itself about 3.5, 4 years ago, trying to figure out, okay, how do we become again this place for people who love plants, for people who want resources in horticulture, want a way to connect with each other through horticulture, want to support horticultural causes. And to that vein, we do have a number of things you get as members, kind of those transactional benefits. If you're a member, you get the magazine. It comes out 6 times a year. It's a great magazine. It's getting better all the time. You get access to, we have been on the cusp of hitting 400 for like 3 months.
No,
Like
it's so many gardens.
400 gardens. I'm just going to say it because I think by the time we get to this being released, it's going to be 400. 400 public gardens, many of which that you have to, pay for
I've used
admission
that
to.
several times.
It's like a national parks pass for gardens across the country. 400 of them, and more all the time. It's been a tremendous success. We've added, I don't know how many, over nearly 60 or 70 since
I
I
always
started.
ask when I go into a garden, are you an AHS reciprocal member?
Yeah.
And I'm often very surprised. And sometimes, like being down in Florida, I don't think it was at Fairchild. I'm trying to remember where it was down in Florida, but the entry was like $24 or something, and my membership was 35. I mean, it was a no brainer.
Yeah.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it
So
makes
it's
a
a
lot of
no-brainer
sense
for
there.
that. You also get access to we have an ongoing all year round series of programs. Some are free to members, some are just discounted, but they're fantastic speakers and lecture series, and they're all year round, always new and fresh. Um,
Are they
just
remote or are they in person or both?
some of them are remote. Some of them are like I went to Binnie Wakefield Arboretum. I was trying it out when I first started. That's on the South Shore here of Boston. I've never been to that arboretum. It was a in-person event that was organized through the AHS. So it was really just Boston people, but it was kind of middle of the afternoon, a tour with the curator there. A wonderful tour that completely kind of changed what I want to do in my own yard now. Fantastic. And it was free if you're a member, and that
Mhm.
was there was like 15 people on the tour. It was great. So there's all these programs. So those are kind of like the main transactional things, but then the AHS has got a lot of other things going on. We do a lot of things with kind of growing the next generation of gardeners. We do a big symposium every summer for teachers across the country to come and learn how to teach kids who are doing any sort of programming. It's not just teachers, it's community organizers and anybody who has kind of garden access that they're bringing kids into to help them with curriculum development. Um, we
So you're
have
supporting
kids.
that, bottom line.
We put it
Yeah.
on. We put it on,
Yeah.
and so,
Yeah.
we also, we have a kids library. We do these kids gardening book awards every year. We do a whole series of book awards, not just the kids ones, but there's a whole special section just for
Mhm.
kids with gardening books. We recently released a guide for sensory gardens. Sensory gardens basically could apply to more than just kids, but people who have various sensory issues and designing how to design gardens for you know e- everything from autistic people to people who have other sensory issues and specific design amounts. It's a free guide that was
Mhm.
underwritten by a donor who thought that was important. It kind of fits in with the whole growing kids and whatnot. We do a lot, especially lately, trying to protect our gardening heritage, our horticultural heritage. We have a huge archives ourselves. We have a lot of relationships with societies, plant societies across the country, and trying to help them retain their records, digitize their records, kind of bring that in. We're working on a big project right now of helping. How can we further help plant societies
Right.
and groups that are really focused on something very specific.
And all they're asking is that $35, Leslie, come on.
Yeah, well, if you're older, if you're younger, you do have to pay 50 now.
Is it
That's
50?
like the
Okay. All
yeah,
right,
it's
it's
50.
50 now. This year is the
I think that's fair.
250th anniversary,
Yeah.
of our nation, so it's even a more special, anniversary for the AHS in a way. I mean, the RHS has had a longer go of it. They got 100 years on it.
Oh yeah.
I think they're
Yeah.
early 19th century, and AHS was 1922. Without looking at my notes and getting my second pair of glasses on. It's so worthwhile. You're not only getting a direct benefit, you're also helping with this outreach
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
places all over the nation, not just back east where River Farm is, but all over the nation. So is
Yeah.
that enough guilt, Les?
Yeah, I'm feeling it. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Well, and to
All
be
right.
honest, I mean, as the organization grows, we get these requests all the time like, "Could you do this? Could you do," and yeah, we can do these things. Like we just, you know, every member counts. When I arrived at the AHS, our numbers were and still kind of are right around 22,000 members nationwide, which is a good healthy number until you look at the RHS and they have like
And then you get sad.
650,000. And I look at
Right.
it and I'm like,
Yeah.
why, why can't we 10x and be like 220? I mean, it's not that we don't have gardeners in this country. We just don't all
Oh,
have a
yeah.
place to go congregate and a place
Right.
to kind of all recognize as that sort of thing. It's like, if you're in England, it's like, of course you're a member of the RHS if you're a gardener.
Yeah.
Why aren't Why doesn't everybody
Well,
feel that way here? Of
they
course
have these
you
large
should be a
gardens
member.
too. That makes a big
True.
difference. You know,
It
there are
does.
5, I believe, and that means that people can visit those for free, and it's River Farm is just here in the DC area in Alexandria, so it's
But we
we
have
don't have that.
400 gardens that you can
But
visit
we
for free.
do have 400 gardens. That's a really good point. I mean, that outreach is there, which,
Yeah.
and the RHS partner gardens aren't always open every single day of the week. Sometimes it's only one day of the month that you can visit under that RHS partnership scheme. So yes, it is so worthwhile. And hopefully we're going to put a link, not hopefully, we are putting a link to membership in the show notes, links and laughs. And hopefully our listeners will go, you know what, that's worthwhile. And I need to be part of it. And I'll be checking in on Leslie to make sure that she's done it in just a little bit.
She's in charge of me. Hey, I'm just curious. It would be
Yeah.
so fun to, I am going to join again. But for people who are sort of on the fence, on the AHS website, is there a list of all these fabulous almost 400 gardens that
Yes,
you
there
can get
are.
into
There's a
for free?
map, and you can put in your own zip code and find out the ones that are close to you, or if you're going to go travel, that are
Yeah,
wherever you
instant
are.
gratification.
Yeah, they're all there. Yeah, it's like our
Okay.
most popular page on the website. We were just
And
talking
that
about that today.
original, I bet it is, that original list that you were searching for because you just thought it should exist when you got back from England, like what did you call it? Where you
Plant
buy
Oh, the
finder.
plant
plants, right?
finder?
But
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that
Rochelle,
going to
we
ever
do have
exist?
some sort of plant finder because every time I'm at Mance, we've got a plant finder book. They hand out, one of the
Yeah.
nurseries hands out a plant finder book. It might
Well, and
just be
also we have a thing that wasn't, not to date myself, but I mean, yes, we had the internet in 2003, but nobody
Somebody
had
saw
their
it.
catalogs online like they do now. Like you
right,
couldn't just search plants on the internet like you could then. So I'm
right.
not actually even sure that they publish the plant
Yeah,
finder
and that
anymore
it's
in England
necessary.
either
Yeah,
anymore. It's kind
yeah,
of not necessary, but
Yeah,
maybe
it's
they do,
a
maybe they don't.
different
I don't know,
world.
but it's a
it is.
different world. Yeah.
All right. I think we should head on over into what we should be planting right now. Otherwise, we're just going to talk and chat forever.
Hmm.
But let's move into Damn I Wish, huh?
Yeah,
Damn, I
damn, I
wish.
wish. So this is the part of the show. Damn, I wish. Where our lives are filled with remorse. No, this is this part of the show
Wish I was a
where we
member. I wish I'd planted that. God, so much.
God, so much. No, it's, here we are in February and what's looking good in your garden? And you might be sort of scratching your head, but there are some beautiful things and each of us has something,
Including
a-
Rochelle.
including
Did you bring
Rochelle.
yours,
And
Rochelle? You got something to lay down? You do.
I
Okay,
did. I
awesome.
do.
Fantastic.
I have to confess, I had such an impossible time picking. I mentioned going to the Wakefield Arboretum, and the thing that inspired me there so much is that they have this conifer garden, and it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And now I am thoroughly obsessed. Like I've been kind of obsessed with grasses for a long, long time. And now I'm like kind of obsessed, even to the point I joined the Conifer Society. I'm like, who am I?
Yay, that's great.
I haven't. I have never joined a plant society. I haven't done anything with them yet, but I was so inspired by that garden that I've been starting to pick up conifers and sort of loosely beginning the assembling of converting this big bed into conifers. So I have um, this evergreen thing going, but what I really wish I'd planted, because I'm in the process of planting those. And once I have a conifer garden, it will look so amazing at this time of year. I can't even tell you. I'm so excited. But we just finished, literally, I finished editing it today. This is for the January, February issue about marcescent leaves
oh yeah,
on and trees and shrubs that have marcescent leaves. And
So explain
damn,
that
I wish
term to our listeners who don't know what it means.
it is trees and shrubs whose leaves, they're deciduous trees and shrubs, but whose leaves don't actually shed in the fall. So they brown, but they don't shed until the spring. And what's interesting about it is I really don't know why. The science of it is really not very understood. Why do trees and shrubs do it? They suspect for all different reasons. But beech trees are a big one that do that. And James McGrath, he's somebody I've followed for a long time, and he's actually just about to join the board of the AHS. He created the most beautiful reeds, winter reeds from branches of beech trees that are just stunning all through the entirety of winter. These twiggy, yellowy, leafy things that I'm thoroughly obsessed with. So, damn, I wish I
American
had a
beach.
beech tree I could
Yeah.
go harvest branches from for a beautiful wreath for my door. That's what I'm
Is he
kind
on
of obsessed
Instagram,
with.
Rochelle? Is James
He
McGrath on?
is.
Okay, well, that issue, if you get into onto your computer listeners after this wonderful episode and become a member of the AHS, then you can get that actual
Issue.
issue
We have a whole
sent to your
story
door.
about marcescent leaved
Yeah,
plants and
yeah.
shrubs and
When I
trees.
think of marcescence, I always think of a young oak. You're like,
Yeah.
you're driving down the street and somebody else is driving. You're looking out the window. You're like, why didn't that tree lose
Mhm.
its leaves? And it's right
Exactly.
next to another tree of the same kind. Young oaks, beech. I wasn't aware.
Hawthorn.
Any other hawthorns? It's very
There,
cool.
Yeah.
some hamamelis and like
Yeah,
the one in
yeah.
Yes.
Rochester that
Like
I
the
brought
ones
Yes.
up.
that
Yeah,
the ones that you wish
Yep.
would push off those leaves because they're
yeah.
ruining the
It's
blooms.
true. It's true.
Yeah.
There's a lot. And it is a very
Yeah.
ghostly, beautiful look. I have two beautiful sort of, I'd say 15 to 20-foot beach in my forest. And I know that that's that secondary layer that's starting to come up. And once it's in place, then a lot of the invasive shrubs that I am having to pull out will not be able to grow. Those beech
Mm.
forests are so beautiful. They're so clean underneath because they just stop everything else from growing. We're not there yet, but boy, I wake up in the morning and look out the window and it's just such a
Yeah.
spectacular sight holding on to those leaves.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
I always
cool.
just thought up until we did this story, I'm like, that's just so weird. It probably just I literally thought that the wind was like responsible for blowing some of them off and like maybe that weird tree that
Avoided
still
that
has
tree.
its leaves is just weirdly outside of a wind current or something. I've noticed it, but I never
Yep.
really thought it was a thing. So I learned something with this story too, and now I'm kind of looking for it everywhere, which is
Yeah.
cool.
All right, I'll go next. And I'm going to bring up the topic of hellebores.
Ugh. Mm.
It's February, of course, hellebores, hellebores, hellebores. But I want to pick out a very specific series, a new hybrid, not new-ish hybrid, called the Ice and Roses series. And I've been growing this for probably about 5 years now, and I grow a lot of hellebores, all different kinds of hellebores. And I am so just amazed by the robustness of this particular cultivar. This is one of the newer hybrids that has the outward facing blooms. A lot of the hybridus or orientalis cultivars that we have that we think of as Lenten roses, those sort of droop down. They are beautiful, beautiful plants, and they're also incredibly hardy. You can leave leaves all over them. You can, do whatever you want with them, and they just seed and keep seeding in all sorts of different colors. Well, these other types that we have, like the Ballardii, Eric Smithii, these are all hybrids, usually of a little bit of Niger and a little bit of Argidiflorus, folius, I think. Is that right? Argidiflorus? Doesn't really matter. It does to the breeders. but, but this Ice and Roses series has those leathery leaves, those outward facing blooms. And unlike a lot of these hybrids, it's very robust. It is strong. These are incredible bloomers. Usually they're just a plain green leathery foliage. They don't have the gorgeous, yeah, the
Variegation.
variegation
Love
that you
that.
find
Yeah.
in some of the others. That I grow those too, and some of them are quite strong, but not all of them. But I find that as long as I keep the crowns of these plants above, high and dry, so that they are not being covered by leaves, they're not being covered by soil or silt or over a long summer, but keep those crowns a little higher, they do beautifully. And I grow red, white, pickety, and pink, but there's a whole list of them. If you're looking to play around with hellebores and you want to do some outward facing, you should definitely look into the Ice and Roses series. Trader Joe's carries it, but you're not going to be
Oh, wow.
sure. Yeah, Trader Joe's is where I originally found these, and they did not say this is ice and roses. It was Trader Joe's hellebore.
Mm.
That's
And
plain enough. Let's
yeah,
keep it simple.
and I've bought a lot of the Niger hybrid or the Niger's hybrids from them, the HGC series, which is Helleboris Gold Collection. Those are all whites and they are earlier blooming and they're a little bit tougher. So do be careful. But if you see these in beautiful bloom at Trader Joe's, it's real possible that that's what you're getting. And you're going to be getting a deal and a half. So stock up. Yeah, it took me a while to find out what they exactly were, but I did eventually. So 5 to 9, zone 5 to 9, they just don't like to be wet. They don't want to be
Hmm.
in wet soils. They like shade. They'll deal with quite a bit of sun. They're just an all-round fabulous plant. And at this time of year, if you've got those bulbs coming up, especially snowdrops coming up around them, you're going to be looking in somebody else's garden and going, oh man, I wish I planted that. What is it? So get
I've got
some.
a question for you
Yeah.
on cultivation. Will you have already clipped away last year's foliage from your hellebores? Do you bother, or do you
That's a
just?
half. Yeah, that's a half and half when it comes to this series because I've got a lot of new foliage that comes up in sort of December, January. There's like little bits of new coming up and it's quite flush. Then some of the old stuff needs to be trimmed because it's brown. But if it's not
Mhm.
brown, I don't trim it. Now, a
Yeah.
little bit different on the Orientalis. I don't know what you do, Rochelle. Do you grow a lot of hellebores?
I do. I do.
Okay.
I
Are
only
you naked
prune if
stem
it's
girl or are you the whole
yeah, they
deal?
can be. Well, because a lot of times just yeah, like the snow is still on the ground and they're
Mhm.
struggling to get through it. So it just depends on the year. But yeah, I just prune if they're bothering me, if they're getting
Yeah.
ugly. Like that's all I do. If it's green and nice, I leave it. If it's ugly and ratty,
Yeah,
off it
the old
goes.
adage of editing, you
Yeah,
don't have to tidy, tidy,
yeah,
tidy, just edit, and
yeah.
then you end up but I for that, because they're such heavy leaves, they're so leathery, I'd feel like, "Oh, I'd maybe be weakening the plant if I did too much of that."
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I feel like it needs that
I
for
like the
preserve.
leaves. I don't ever
Yeah.
really wanna I like those big a couple of mine just get they're these massive clumps now, and I love the way the leaves kind of hold up all those I mean, the stems they don't
Yeah.
need to be held up, but or the flowers, but,
They frame it, don't they? They frame
they
the
really
leaf.
do. They're
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I've played around with the Orientalis hybridus, sort of the droopy guys, and just played with beds that only have the flowers coming up. It always looks a little naked to me. I'd always much
Yeah.
rather have a little bit of green, as long as it's
Mhm.
not too ratty looking. What about you, Les?
Yeah.
I am the scalped look in this little tiny garden. In my old woodland garden, I just said, "Oh no, we need some green. This is great," which actually plays into my plant that I'm going to tell you about, which is green in winter. But in my new garden, there were two reasons why I scalped them, particularly this year. I moved a bunch around. I was going to damage those leaves anyway. It is so small that the naked stems coming up is kind of more, huh, what are you doing? What are you doing there? It's not a woodland look. It's a very small cultured,
Oh,
horticultured
okay.
look. And also I couldn't actually understand where I was going to sink all those bulbs that I went to town on. And I needed to get rid of the foliage to see, where does this plant end? Where does the land begin? So they're all
Mhm.
gone. But speaking of evergreens in the garden, some foliage that you might want to have in yours is and it's got a fabulous name. That's one of the best parts about it. It's the poet's laurel. Um,
Oh.
it's a very interesting plant. It's actually the only one of its type. It's a monotypic plant. So that's it in that it's the only one of its
And it and
species,
its
right?
and its botanical name is Poetus lordicollis. Come on, let's bring it in. Come on, Les.
Danae Danae racemosa. And so that's Danae. And I saw a couple of different pronunciations from that, but I go with Danae. What do you guys
Yeah,
do?
I think probably Danae.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I would
yeah.
go with.
But
Mhm.
I love the poet's laurel name, even though it's
Yeah,
much
it is
longer.
pretty beautiful. Because
It
you
is
can
pretty
make
beautiful.
a little
Right,
thing
and
around your
actually, according to Tony Avent, that's where it came from. It has a history in Greek and Roman culture representing praise for a victory or great achievement in the form of a laurel crown. Danae
Ah.
woven stem wreaths were also bestowed on revered members of society who, if they then lived off of past glories, were said to be resting on their laurels, even though their
Oh.
laurels were on
Oh,
their
this
head.
is that Laurel.
I guess.
Okay. The one that
I
we're
don't know.
resting on all the time, Les. We really gotta up our
We're
game.
totally, I know.
Constantly
So,
resting on our
this
laurels.
is I mean, it's officially a shrub, but it's an evergreen something something. It's not really woody. It grows so incredibly slowly that it's one of those great pass-along plants. The industry doesn't really want to touch it because it just takes, oh, we've got a new little baby here, and 10 years later we'll have something we can sell. It's not a great
So,
business
what's the
model.
zone on that guy?
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so specific, 7, 8, and 9.
Because I was gonna say, there's no way
Oh.
Rochelle's growing that because it looks like
I
dirt
know. I was like
here.
starting to pull up my phone. I'm like, can I grow
I
this? No, I guess
know.
not. I'll
No,
put my phone down.
Rochelle, let me just tell you, I'm in that marginal place and it looks bedraggled. It looks like you are the lowest of the low poets. If you put that around you, you
Mm,
just suck.
mm.
You're not,
So I'm
Where
in
are you at,
Charlottesville.
Leslie? Oh,
I'm in
Charlottesville.
Charlottesville, so I'm just
Yeah.
south of Marianne, but I really am much warmer, I
Warmer.
guess, as
Yeah.
a whole zone, maybe, or at least half a zone. So it was growing beautifully in my big garden where I went to check on it. I moved away from a big garden about 2 years ago, and I'm like, oh, that's getting bigger so slowly. I mean, when they say 4 by
Yeah.
4, I don't know if we're going to live long enough for anything.
Oh
I
boy.
mean, it's just so slow. Deer don't want to touch it unless they're incredibly hungry. So that's a good thing. It's got these deep, glossy foliage. It's sort of an ovate leaf about 2 to 3 inches long. It's not actually a leaf. It's like part of the stem that's squished to look like a leaf. This is what I'm reading. I don't know. It's a weirdo plant, but it is super duper in the cut. You can make those wreaths out of it, and I guess rest on them because they won't turn brown. If you I would say that, Rochelle, you might want to look for it because apparently people who can't grow it are fairly familiar with it if they are experienced cut flower arrangers because
Oh,
it's so good that way.
tell me
So
the second Danae, the last part.
Racemosa.
Racemosa.
And
Hmm.
you know,
Right.
Matt Mattis, and who is
Oh,
fantastic at what
my
he does,
neighbor.
writes for
Oh,
you
is he?
and your
Nice.
neighbor. Yeah,
Yeah.
he will
Oh,
know
well.
a lot about that, and I bet you he might have that in his greenhouse. He may have made
Oh, he
more room
probably
for
does.
sarcococa because there's that similar evergreen small leaf.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
It's
just
in
to
the asparagus
yeah,
family, evidently. So if you can, oh, now think what else is in the asparagus family? Oh, it's sort of like the rhodea, right?
which
Or
we can
the
grow, yeah, which is very hardy.
So, and does yours have these berries on it, like the
yeah.
red or
So
orange berries, or?
once again, I grew things that were so small that they didn't berry for me when I lived there.
Oh,
Now I just
right.
went back and I didn't see any berries, but I think only a very mature plant does berry. Do
Okay.
yours, Marianne? Does yours berry?
No, no, I told you it's been beaten. It looks like it's part of a domestic incident every
Okay.
year. It's slowly getting bigger, but it's just not in a sheltered enough spot, and I'm not positive I have a sheltered enough spot for it.
It
And
wants shade, by the
when I'm
way,
in
listeners.
England and I see it there, and it's this large. I mean, it's just glossy and beautiful, and in the winter, oh, so beautiful. And then I think, okay, I got to move that and put it somewhere. But I mean, mine is slowly getting bigger. It just looks a little bit bedraggled. So we'll
Yeah.
see. Maybe as the
Shade
warmer.
plant for sure, and
Yeah,
it loves a little bit of moist soil, but it is one of those rare plants that once established can take the very difficult and wonderful thing that we all have in our gardens, which is dry
the
shade.
shade,
So,
like
yeah.
ruscus. Yeah.
Yeah, like ruscus. So
All
that's
right.
my plant.
All right. We did this. We got it
We
done.
did
Well,
this.
Rochelle, thank you so much for joining us and
Oh,
letting
thank you
people
for having
know
me.
so much about the AHS and American Gardener. And I'm in awe of this new design. I think it's a fantastic one. I particularly love the way that you're doing different types of formatting for each of the articles. I think that really keeps the attention and makes it feel very interactive and keeps you engaged. So good luck with that as you move into the next year.
I had a mantra that I have continued when we did the redesign, and it was and is surprise, delight, and joy on every page. And
Yeah,
that
that's
has
great.
been, so some of those formatting things, the story ideas, like everything we do, we kind of keep that in the back of our mind is we want to surprise people, we want to delight them, we want to give them joy on some level if we can. So that's kind of the whole gist of the magazine. You'll see it in the colors, you'll see it in every way we can think of to do that.
Well, you're doing it, girl.
I hope every one of our followers, listeners, watchers, whatever you're doing with the garden mixer, I hope you mix it up on the American Horticultural Society now,
Thank
right
you.
now.
And I'm looking forward to seeing you, Leslie, come and join the AHS. So
I
as with
will.
everybody else who's listening.
I absolutely will. Okay. Thanks, Rochelle.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Good night, everybody. We'll see you next time.